Thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Details on a free trial at the end. Last month, F1 sprinkled their latest breadcrumbs leading to what will ultimately become the big 2021 changes. We've been banging on about this for a long time now, but F1 is really aiming to make 2021 a huge year for change, when they correct a lot of the wayward aspects of the sport and lay a new path for its future. So while this video is a little bit late compared to the news release, 2021 is still miles away and... oh, yeah, they really are pushing this fine, aren't they? Okay, so let's break down the core principles that Formula One are looking to focus on in their mission to improve F1 for all. 1. Making the cars more raceable. So basically at the moment, the cars aren't really able to race against each other as well as we'd like. Sure, we've had a string of good races, but we really want to be able to guarantee similarly matched cars can have a go at each other at every race, right? Thanks to some terrible choices made in revamping the cars in 2017, once a car gets within 2 car lengths of the car in front of it, it loses about half of its downforce. I mean, it was bad already, but it is worse now. The aim is to drop this downforce loss to about 5 to 10%, and apparently this is looking good, according to the models they're working on so far. Downforce loss in following a car is bad in a couple of ways. First, it means you lose masses of time through the corners, so you're always slower and further behind once you try and give chase through the next straight. Secondly, it kills the tyres. The dirty air in the wake of a car affects the front wing aero much more than any other area of the car, so the forces of the car unbalance and work the tyres in completely unideal ways. Currently, the downforce on an F1 car is split roughly 20% from each wing and 60% from the underbody and diffuser. F1 wants to switch this much more towards the underbody by bringing back ground effect, which you can see more of in this video, and by simplifying the wings so the sensitive overbody aero is less important to the stability of the car. The tyres are also changing from 13-inch to 18-inch wheels, with Pirelli being asked to change their approach to design. Pat Simmons thinks it was wrong to push Pirelli into making a high degradation tyre, as it's made drivers focus much more on tyre management than out-and-out racing. Instead, we're now looking at tyres that can be pushed and pushed. However, we are still in favour of pit stops being an important part of the race, so the tyres can't last forever. This is a tricky thing to prepare for, as you either have tyres that degrade in a predictable way, no matter how hard they're pushed, or you have tyres that suddenly drop off a cliff at a certain point. The former seems likely, particularly as tyre blankets will likely be outlawed. At the moment, F1 cars are hilariously bad on cold tyres, and so the tyres are heated to 80 and 100 degrees Celsius before they're put on the cars. But the new generation tyres will be able to function across a wide temperature range, as with lots of other racing series. And with rubber that's less temperature sensitive, comes rubber that shouldn't freak out as it's pushed. The second core principle is making the grids more competitive. Here in the year 2019, we don't just have this huge gap in performance between the front end of the grid and the back end of the grid, but we also have a huge gap between the front of the grid and the middle of the grid. Again, this is reflected in the championship table, with the points being hugely skewed to one end. Ideally, we'd want to make grids far less predictable and put many more cars and drivers in contention for good places. This will also allow drivers and teams to compete for better championship positions across the year and make many more seats actually worthwhile for the best drivers on the grid. At the moment, we could have lots of title contention-worthy drivers out there that would be wasted if they weren't in a Mercedes. What good would it be for Verstappen to be stuck in a Renault currently? We need it to be true that a driver can make the difference. Now, this is where some of this compromise comes in that some F1 fans may flinch at, but I do agree with Ross Brawn that it's for the greater good. Now, the aero looks like it's going to be much more prescriptive. That is, the teams will have a lot of their freedom taken away in how they can develop the cars. The amount of elbow room they have currently is driving a wedge in competition, particularly between the rich and the poor. The way Ross Brawn puts it is that he wants a good, moderately funded team to be able to cause a lot of trouble. You know, a Racing Point may be able to win the occasional race, and if Mercedes and Ferrari continue to be frontrunners, a mistake could in this new world really cost them, as the midfield will be right there gaining everything they can. A bad race could have serious championship consequences with a tighter field. You know how Sainz is currently grinding on Gasly? Well, that, but all the way through the field. Brawn wants the difference between the best and the worst to be in the regions of tenths, not seconds. And I think we all want that. Some of the ideas being funneled into these blueprints include taking even more driver aids away, which means some restrictions in how the software takes over and some of the clever mechanical systems that take control away from the driver. They also want to reduce car-to-pit telemetry. Essentially, the many sensors on the car send live information to computers in the pits and back to the team HQ. The computers then crunch all that data and start forming strategies and suggestions for how to run the race and drive the car. This takes a huge amount of resources and hands over race management to computers instead of the driver. F1 wants to hand all that management back to the driver, so they spend a lot less time being coached by their engineers over the radio. Removing a lot of live sensory communication between the car and the pits will do a lot to stymie this, much more than the hilarious attempts to restrict what engineers can verbally say that F1 tried a few years back. Okay, the third core principle is the wow factor. F1 wants aesthetically pleasing cars, the kind of machine you'd want to stick on your wall and gawp at. This is something I'm less bothered about personally, as I think the other stuff is more of a priority, but I know it's important to a lot of fans, and why not crack this while you're doing the other stuff? But one person's sexy is another person's horror show, so F1 fans are looking to consult with fans to find out what they want from the car's looks, and I think this is a bad idea. Stick to consulting with automobile designers, which they are absolutely doing, to meet the technical needs in the sexiest way possible. Fans, and I absolutely include myself in this, think they know what they want, but they really don't, and they certainly don't know how to make it happen. With proper modern designers on hand to offer advice, I'm sure F1 will do a brilliant, wonderful job on the 2021 cars that will completely divide opinion among fans. And finally, the fourth core principle, financial viability. Costs are undeniably out of control, and the gap between the rich and the poor teams is too high when what you want is a sustainable, competitive sport. It should be easier and cheaper to compete. We should take success from those with the most resources and move it towards those with the most talent and ingenuity. To that end, F1 is aiming to standardise a lot of parts that really don't need to be endlessly meddled with for tiny advantages. Wheel rims, brakes, radiators, etc. None of that needs 4,000 hours and £500,000 of R&D spent on them. On top of that, they'll further restrict certain areas, like in the use of exotic materials, like expensive, rare materials that offer a slight advantage. Banning of hydraulic suspension, freezing gearboxes, and other restrictions like that focus the team to work on the things that actually matter and are interesting. They also want to reduce allowed wind tunnel time, how big teams can be, how many staff can be brought to a race, capping costs across the organisation, except for key talent like drivers and top-end managements and marketing. Basically, the overall aim is to bring the focus back to the track and less on that 24/7 R&D and computer crunching going back in mostly Middle England. Development is a key part of Formula 1, but the focus should always be on the actual racing. Designing the world's slickest aerodynamic wheel nuts means absolutely nothing in the big picture. F1, the FIA and the teams are continuing to work closely together on this, which on the one hand is good, as many perspectives will bring more to the table and reduce blind spots we've seen before. On the other hand, each party has their own agenda, so Ross Brawn has to carefully manage the inputs to ensure the best overall results for the sport. We should have the final rules published in October, which is hilarious considering the lead times on car designs. And then F1 aims to have continued the discussion and development of the rules as time goes on. If you're nervous, then yeah, so am I. It's all running very close to the wire and very much behind closed doors right now, but I have faith in Ross Brawn. So let's hope he can get everyone on board and we can go racing together better than before. Now, bearing in mind I just said we as fans have no idea what we want, and I stand by that, tell me what you want in the comments below. Just because it's hard to nail an opinion doesn't mean yours isn't valid. And what is F1 but a long series of us being proved completely wrong over and over again. As mentioned at the top, this video is sponsored by NordVPN, which I have been using myself for quite a while for a number of reasons. Now, VPN is a virtual private network, which means you can use the internet anonymously, mask your location, keep your data encrypted, which, when massive conglomerates are hooving up our data and crunching it faster than the Formula 1 team, you should think about making yourself a little bit more private. Now, you don't have to be a devious criminal torrenting Uwe Boll movies 24/7 to want to hide your data and keep yourself private from the thousands of trackers and bots monitoring you across the web. It just makes sense. And technically, you can virtually place your computer in one of the many locations around the world which, might be useful to people who like watching international motorsports. Maybe. For example, I went to New York last month to cover the Formula E, but thanks to NordVPN, my laptop thought it was still in the UK, and I was able to stream the British Grand Prix as the British citizen I am. If all this sounds good to you, you can go to nordvpn.org/chainbear and use the coupon code chainbear to get an actually really good 75% off a 3-year sub and a bonus month free. Not too shabby. So nordvpn.org/chainbear. Check it out, click on it in the description below, and browse the internet with greater peace of mind.